All right, everyone, 2023 has come to a close for a couple days now. We're a little bit behind on this, but I hope you guys all had a great Christmas and you had a great New Year's and a great 2023 in general. I hope it answered all your gaming wishes and needs that you had wished upon it. But, anyways, my year was really fun. Got a lot of cool things going on in life other than video game, and that's made it exciting. That's continuing to go on in 2024. But this is going to be the recap video for 2023, the games that I have beaten, my game of the year type video. Now, what I'm going to do to make this really convenient for everybody is I'm going to show you the games that I have beaten. I'm going to put the list up on here and you're going to see that. Matter of fact, I'll minimize myself and show you guys right now. So here it is. Here is the list of games that I have beaten and completed, 24 games this year. And after this intro part, we're going to go ahead and cut to the part where I talk about each game individually. But for anyone who wants me to just get it out the way and spoil what my game of the year was, it was tough choice between Dead Space Remake and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And overall, it was Tears of the Kingdom. So there you go. That's my game of the year. And these are all the games that I've beaten. You're seeing it in front of you right now. But if you want to hear more, continue to listen. And I kind of go through each game and give my thoughts on each game as I go through it. My most disappointing game, hands down, was Starfield. And if you want to know why, tune in later on in the video. So there you go, short and sweet. And for those who want to stick around to see the rest of it, continue to watch. And thank you for watching. And yeah, have a great 2024. All right, so here we go. Here is the list. And again, I don't know how high production I'm going to get into this. You might just see my face up here the whole time with this list. So you can keep me on in the background, kind of like a podcast. That way you don't have to watch the screen and see these bright lights or my ugly face. So here we go. The 24 games that I completed this year. Yeah, it's not too many. Normally I kind of finish in that 30-ish range, so we're kind of close there, but some of these games I actually put a lot of time into, like Diablo 4. Playing it when it first came out, playing through season 1, playing through season 2, so putting a bunch of hours into those games. But we'll do a recap of everything here. Starting at the top, Dead Space Remake. That is a remake done right, people. Man, the necromorphs in that game just look scarier than ever. I love survival horror, and the Dead Space series was like a reawakening when they first came out, when that first entry came out. Having your silent protagonist just going through the Ishimura, and it was just a joy to experience. And to experience the remake, I don't know, that's a close one. I would probably put it over top of the original. That's how good it is. I love the system with the necromorphs of where after a certain amount of time, in games, enemies kind of have their set places they're supposed to be at. But in this one, they can come out of nowhere. You think you're going to be safe, and all of a sudden, boom, a necromorph will just come through the ceiling, out of a gutter, or wherever they're at, and just get you. So I loved how they did that. I do not remember if that was actually in the original Dead Space or not, that kind of technology. But awesome, awesome game. I know people had their worries about what was going to happen in remakes. Do they make people talk and everything too much? I still thought it was great. I loved it. I'm looking forward to seeing if they're going to do the same with number two. And I have yet to finish number three. Me and a buddy started that co op when it first came out on PS3, and we never finished it. So I still need to play the third one. So if they remake the second and maybe even the third, I'm all in, baby. I'm all in. Next up was Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. You all know I'm trying to get a complete GameCube collection, but I'm also trying to beat every game on the GameCube. That was kind of like one of my stream goals. And Prince of Persia: Sands of Time was the next one up that I wanted to do. I've already beaten Warrior Within and Two Thrones, but I never beat the original. So it was cool going back and seeing where the 3D side of the series got its start into its action combat platforming. So awesome entry. All right, next up we had Super Mario Land 2, the six golden coins. That is a replay for me. It's just one of those quick games that you want to play, that you know you loved, your tried and true trusted games, and went through and just played through it again just because it's fun to go back and play stuff like that sometimes, especially Mario Land 2. It's really cool seeing how they could implement like the system we're familiar with now, with kind of Mario having a world and levels kind of designed around the world you're in there. And they had that on the Game Boy back in the day. So that was really cool. It translated really well. And it is a great Mario game. So 6 golden coins. After that, we had another replay for me, and that was the Mass Effect, but this time the Legendary Edition. They had it on PS5. I do not remember if it was part of PS Plus this year, last year, whenever it was. I always make sure to add it to my library, and then I went through and gave it a playthrough. Series that I've played through the first two entries in again. But the third one, I've only ever played maybe an hour, and then I was done with it. I've never finished the third. So I've never gotten to see how Shepard's journey concluded. I know there's a lot of drama behind how it concluded, and I believe they tried to go back and fix it for people. Some were torn on that. So I figured instead of going straight to the third, let me start all over again with the Legendary Edition. So we knocked out the first one. Still holds up, looks great, plays great. I loved it. And the fifth game we completed was Atomic Heart. I played this on Game Pass, and it was one of those games that, I didn't have it marked on my calendar like, hey, I got to make sure I play this. But since it was on Game Pass, I went ahead and paid for, I don't know if I already had Game Pass at that point. Normally, I only pay for, like, if a game's coming out, I'll pay for that month and play it and then in the subscription again. So I cannot remember if I had it yet or not. But, anyways, kind of gave these Bioshock vibes from the trailers and stuff. And reviews were okay on it. So I said, you know what? I'll give it a try. And the gameplay and stuff was really cool. The world, while not as exciting as like a Rapture, it was still a cool world to be in. It had all these machines that were kind of taking over, were the vibes that I'm getting from it. I'm having trouble remembering the story because it just wasn't super memorable for me. It didn't really stick in there. I just remember having abilities that you could use and first person shooter, melee stuff in the game. But we did complete it. And I do remember the story being pretty cool and it kind of being left open for a sequel of how it kind of ended. It had a pretty cool ending. A twist that I didn't really see coming. It kind of caught me off guard. So, pretty cool story, but nothing super memorable with it. And number six was another one that was on Game Pass that I went ahead and knocked out because I'd seen so many good things talked about it and praised about it. Another survival horror game, and that was Signalis. One that kind of goes back to the old PS1 days of survival horror games with Resident Evil, with the stopping and shooting and the kind of camera views and stuff you have in it. And it was a really cool throwback to like the games that we used to play back then. The story is where it's really at with this game though, and you can kind of get some different endings in it depending on how you go through the game. And it's something I don't really want to spoil because that's one of the big parts of that game is the story. All I can say is I highly recommend it. Give it a playthrough. It's not that long to play through. I think you can beat it in about 6 to 10 hours, depending on how good you are at stuff like this. But really solid entry. And if it's still on Game Pass, why not? And number seven, another one I think that was on Game Pass was Dead Cells. This is one that has gotten so much praise ever since it had come out. I know there's been add-ons for it, like a Castlevania add-on, which I love Castlevania. That was not in this free version on the Game Pass, just like the original version of Dead Cells, but it was always touted to be kind of like a 2D Metroidvania Souls-like game, but it's also a roguelite. So you're going through hack and slash combat, unlocking abilities and upgrading them. And it's not too many levels to get through. So you can do multiple runs, but it's like a roguelite because if you die during that run, some of the stuff can carry over to the next game depending on unlocks and stuff you get, I believe. So it was a really fun combat system and artwork. It was a really cool soundtrack, but again, maybe overhyped to me. It was a cool game, but I mean, it's getting like nines and tens everywhere. Maybe not for me. Still a solid game though, and I'm glad that I finally knocked it off the list. Oh man, and speaking of survival horror, next up, number 8, the Resident Evil 4 remake. Now, if you watch my channel for a while, you know I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. Resident Evil 2, for the longest time, was my number one game of all time on top of my list. Not anymore. Depending on what day you ask me, it still might be, but it's like Super Metroid, Resident Evil 2, Bloodborne. It's like, ugh. Anyways, I digress. But Resident Evil 4, I'm kind of in the minority where I think a lot of people had this Resident Evil when it originally came out as their Resident Evil. Like it was their number one choice. Like, yeah, I think Maximilian Dude, it's his favorite. Like people love Resident Evil 4. And while I enjoyed it when it first came out, still loved it, it had nothing on Resident Evil 2 for me. Resident Evil 2 still beat it by far. I was still excited for the remake though. It's been a while since I had played through RE4. I actually bought the MetaQuest 2 version on my Oculus when it first came out and started playing through again on there, which was really fun. But I was looking forward to the remake just like everybody else. And man, again, another remake done right. Like Capcom is really good at doing these RE remakes with Resident Evil 2. I know people weren't so hot on Resident Evil 3. I mean, mainly because it's length, but still, their engine, that RE engine, whatever they're using, is just awesome. These games look great. So playing through 4 again, it was awesome. Like getting old Leon back after playing through RE2 remake, then we get him back again in the RE4 remake. It it just played great. It controlled great. It even got me into speed running it. That's how much I fell in love with it. I started speed running the game. I'm nowhere near as good as these people who can hold the records and stuff in it, but it was still a blast going through and just trying to master the game in its entirety. So really loved it. I still put RE2 above it, but it gained some headway probably with this RE4 remake. It was awesome. And our ninth entry is one that I was really happy to finally knock off the list. I've played and completed every mainline Zelda game because they're fantastic. I love the series like most people. A staple Nintendo franchise. But there was one glaring omission that I still had yet to complete until this year, and that was Majora's Mask. And I actually played the 3DS version. This was actually a tough choice to do because when there's multiple versions out of a game, I kind of like to look up and research, okay, what's the highly recommended version to play? What can I get the best experience from? So on and so forth. And it was like a mixture between which ones. You got the like Master Quest editions, you got the original edition, you have the 3DS edition. The one that was recommended the most was actually the Majora's Mask. They were saying to take the 3DS version and download it and play it on an emulator and put this mod on it. There's some type of mod that enhances it and everything that makes it the definitive version. Like, you know what? I own a 3DS copy, so I'm perfectly fine with trying to download an emulator for it. I couldn't get that stuff to work, man. I could not get the emulator to work, so I was like, forget it. I'm just gonna play it on the 3DS. That's how I'll play it. I'm trying to think what people said the downfall was in it. Maybe the swimming or something. I don't know. I can't remember. But anyways, I just played the 3DS version, and I'm so happy to finally have it off the list. I know for some people, this kind of darker version of Zelda is number one. It's number one on people's list, mainly because of the story and how that plays through with how you have the moon's coming to crash down on you with its evil face. It's going to destroy the town, and you only have this timer of 3 days. And that timer always intimidated me. That's the thing that kept me from wanting to play the game. I hate timers in games, and I still didn't like it in this one. It was irritating and annoying. I want to be able to explore a Zelda game without any constraints like that. And you always were under that time constraint. I didn't want to have to, for example, you're going through to do a dungeon. Yeah, you're getting far into the dungeon and you can complete the dungeon, but oh, you might have missed like a heart container if you're trying to collect more hearts. You wouldn't have time to go back and get it, then finish the dungeon. You'd have to rewind time, then redo everything you just did. And that just still irritated me. So I'm glad I was able to play and complete it because it was still a really good game. But the time constraints, I feared them because I hate that kind of stuff, and I hated it with the game. I wish there was. I'm sure someone probably has a mod out there, maybe where it's like there's no timer and you can just change the date. It's like, all right, we got a forward time now, so let's forward time to continue the story, but that it would just stay stagnant. But still had a good time playing it, and I'm glad I finally completed it. All right, number 10. The 10th game we completed this year was Double Dragon, another classic. And I finished this on the like Nintendo Switch Online NES like eShop thing. And it was still a good challenge for me, but like now knowing like some of the moves and stuff you can do in the game, not when I was young growing up, it was easier to get through. Still had its challenges, and I want to say I probably did use save states in it just to get through it. But I'm still gonna mark it as completed. Double Dragon. And here was one of the big ones for the year, Diablo 4. I've streamed it. I've put so many hours into it. One of the most anticipated games for me this year. Probably the most anticipated game for me. And boy, did it disappoint. Not really, because I still Diablo is real simple for me. I just love going around hacking and slashing things, unlocking abilities, getting that sweet, sexy loot, and just becoming stronger and having my build become more powerful. But this game had some major issues at launch. You know, when I'm playing through a game like that and I'm leveling up, I want to feel like I'm getting stronger. Problem with this game when it launched is it felt like you were getting weaker as you got stronger, which made no sense. Like balancing and stuff needed to be fixed. Leveling up took forever. People who played hardcore on hardcore servers were getting screwed over by some deaths because of the servers and what was happening in it. It was just a really rough launch. My original character, I never got to max level because it took so long. That last like 20 levels to level, it was just ridiculous. So, but I still put a lot of time into it and still had fun initially with my barbarian. But I put it down, wait till season one to see the improvements, and they did make some decent improvements for season one. Just the theme wasn't really that good. So once again, powered through, leveled up, and still, I think in season one, I only made it to high 80s with my character. Like, did not finish it and max level it. It took till season two for me to finally get a max level character because they finally dialed back on the experience that it took to get up there. Still took a good amount of time, but man, season two was finally where Diablo 4 is finally heading in a good direction. It stinks that it took half a year for it to finally get to that point, but it's still falling short for some things. There's still some mechanics, like with some of these boss fights, that have one hit mechanics. I cannot stand that stuff in a game. I think the in game Uber Lilith fight is one of the dumbest boss fights ever created because with certain characters, it's just I'm not a god gamer, and it just felt impossible with my druid to be able to beat her. Not because I'm not strong enough, I can melt her health bar. It's just the one shot mechanics and trying to dodge with on a mouse with in a tiny space where hitboxes on her attacks are enormous. So you can make fun of me and my gaming skills, but I think it's one of the worst boss fights ever designed. I don't know if it's ever going to get reworked or anything. I think they already have a couple times, but I've still yet to beat her. I'm sure there's probably some broken build out there I can beat her with, but it stinks that you have to use builds like that to beat something. So I've still put the most hours into this game over any game this year, but it has still kind of left me with a pretty big taste of disappointment from all the hype that I had for it. Still looks beautiful and plays great. It needs some work. And next up is another GameCube game that I finally got to knock off the checklist. A GameCube classic, a series that had its fourth release this year, and that is the original Pikmin. I played and streamed that whole thing on YouTube, so if you want to go and check the VODs from my Pikmin playthrough, you are more than welcome to. I had a blast playing it, especially trying to learn that final boss fight, man. And you get attached to your Pikmin in these games, and having to see some of my Pikmin get sacrificed for things, it felt horrible. And I had some people watching me who I'd played through the game multiple times, and they're really good at not losing any of their Pikmin. They can get through it and not lose anybody, but not me, especially on that last fight and having to do some sacrificing there. But then, of course, seeing how you're supposed to do it later on, I'm like, oh, I could have saved my guys. Still had a great time. I can't wait to dive into the other entries. I want to play co op with my son with some of the later entries too. So, really enjoyed Pikmin. All right, number 13, another heavy hitter that came out this year, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I don't even know where to begin with this game. Breath of the Wild was an incredible Zelda game. Loved it. When Tears of the Kingdom was first announced, it's kind of like cool, but then at the same time, just like more of the same. But I think this game did just enough to kind of differentiate itself to kind of make it feel like it was a step ahead of the original Breath of the Wild. Visually and everything, it did look far superior. I played the first Breath of the Wild on my Wii U. That's what I played it on because I didn't have a Switch at launch. But this just looked incredible. Visually, they just did such a great job with this art style and the music they have in it. It just felt like I was playing through a beautiful painting. It was just incredible. Boss fights were fun. Combat's fun, even though the stinking weapon degrading system and everything in it, I still don't like that. Understand why they do it, but I don't like it. That does take it away from a little bit. But the story just had me like hooked. The ending of this game, like how the final battle sequence and everything goes out, it's like cinematic greatness. It is just awesome. Like I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't played it, but the final sequences there are just they are top notch. I loved it. So, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, another fantastic entry into the Legend of Zelda series. I'm not ready to say what my favorite Zelda is. I'd have to sit down and think, is this it? Is Tears of the Kingdom the best one? I don't know, man. It's close. That's going to take some thinking. I don't know. Number 14 on the list, Pulseman, another game that is on the Nintendo. I think it's the Sega Genesis kind of online thing they got there. If you are an expansion pass holder. But anyways, Pulseman, I don't know what made me want to play it. I was getting like Mega Man, Gunstar Heroes, like it just looked like a Sonic. I was getting vibes from that and playing it. It's like, you know what? Let me give it a go. So just played through it, had a good time, quick, short, simple game to play through one night, and yeah, I recommend it. Now the next couple entries are pretty cool because I got to play them with my kids. First one here, I was looking for something to co-op to play with them, and it was Tomb Raider: Temple of Osiris. We played this during the summer, trying to think of something we can do together, and we're like, let's play this one. I think it's another download you could get off of PlayStation Plus. So we played through it co-op, and it was cool. It's like a dungeon crawler. Um, at times it's like action combat system, but you kind of have that targeting with your stick-based shooters if you're using shooting weapons and everything with some kind of light puzzle mechanics in it. So it was a fun little playthrough that we got to enjoy together. I always like playing stuff with my kids. But the one we probably had the most fun with was the next entry, and that's number 16, Disney's Illusion Island, with four-player co-op. It was me and all my kids, my two daughters and my son, did a full playthrough of this game. And it actually surprised me at how, I mean, the game is pretty basic with what you have to do, but it has some really good Metroidvania mechanics in it, and the controls are perfect. Like the controls are top notch. So kudos to them. The game visually looks pretty samey everywhere you kind of went in it, but we had a great time playing as Goofy, Minnie Mouse, Donald Duck, and Mickey Mouse. I picked Donald Duck. My son was Mickey. One of my daughters was Minnie, the other one was Goofy. And it was cool because when you unlocked abilities in the game, they each had their own like kind of ability they would unlock to help you progress further through the game. I mean, they all did the same thing, but they would have a different item that assisted it with it. Like you wanted to float down or shoot up. Someone would have an umbrella, someone else would have something different. And it was cool how they kind of all attached to that character, but I like the kind of catch up mechanics it had in it because my youngest daughter, yes, she's can't really keep up with some of us, but it will pull you and not take your life, and you can be right there with you. Or if we wanted to let someone just do something on their own, we'd sit back and like, all right, it's your turn, have a chance at unlocking this item. That's the other thing. There were so many unlockables you can get in the game. It was kind of cool us taking turns. All right, who's going to get this secret next, and so on and so forth. So really fun game to play, 4-player co-op with your kids. If you have any kids you want to play with, highly recommend it. All right, and the next one, Transformers Prime. And you're kind of like, what? Why would you want to play Transformers Prime? Well, I had just finished watching the newest entry into the Transformers movie. I think it came out last year. I don't know if it came out this year or not, but I finally watched it. And, those movies have kind of been going downhill. And I didn't have too many hopes for the film, but it was actually pretty good. I actually liked the newest Transformers movie. I thought it was very well acted. It had some cool action sequences and stuff in it. The story was pretty neat, and it got me into a mood of wanting to play Transformers games. Well, I wanted to play through the Cybertron series again with War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, but at the time I did not have War for Cybertron. I've already played through it, but I did not have my copy anymore. Finally did get another copy this year. But I went ahead and just played Transformers Prime because I had that, just bought it for the Wii U at a convention. Like, let's play through this. Really like basic action Transformers game. It still had a okay time playing through it. It wasn't like it was, oh, I'm slugging through this thing. It was pretty simplistic, but Transformers. I know nothing about Transformers Prime, the show or anything, but it did its part as a game. Ending boss fight, not too much of a challenge, but I guess this is more directed to kids to play. But cool that I played through it. And number 18, a classic that, yes, I had never beaten before, and that is Jak and Daxter, The Precursors Legacy. I played that through PlayStation Plus as well. You can download a bunch of PS2 games depending on the type of membership you got with it. And I had an offer since it was getting close to the end of the year that I could get the top tier membership for only a certain amount of money more. I was like, you know what? I'll do that. And I downloaded and played a couple games from it, which you'll see. And Jak and Daxter Precursors Legacy was like the first one I did. It's like, you know what? I need to go back and play this. Sometimes you get in a mood for a game like this. I wanted something that was a platformer, kind of collectathon type of thing. I thought that's kind of what this would be. And I regret that I never played this back in the day. It was cool kind of playing it, kind of like an updated version with the PS5 though. But awesome, awesome series. So I cannot wait to play the sequels and get into those because it was just fun. Like just going through these different worlds with, I guess the best way to describe it takes me back to a time where not everything was all about looking so super realistic and like you're walking outside today and playing a game. This is back where you're having fun with artwork. You're created these these characters that are just kind of out there and they're awesome. It's like, man, this character is awesome. Jak is awesome. And some of the characters you run into, it's just very creative. I loved all the color and stuff that you see in the game. So it just took me back. Took me back to a younger day. And that's what I love the most about it. 19, Ape Escape on the Loose. I do not know what even drove me to want to play an Ape Escape game. But they were on there, and I want to say this is the PSP version of the original. And that was another one. Which one do you play? The original or this one? They both kind of had their upsides and downsides, but I picked the PSP version to play. And what is Ape Escape? Well, basically, you're going through a level. There's a certain amount of apes that have broken loose, and you have to just catch them. Now, there's certain puzzles designed by unlocking some of these apes that make them more challenging to get to. You might have to do something in a level for them to pop out and you get them. Some just run around, and there's certain abilities or items you can use to make it easier to catch them. And it was a really cool game. I actually enjoyed the concept of it. And I'm looking forward to playing other entries into it because it was really cool. And it was pretty creative of how they do the boss fights in it. Since it's on Catching Apes, how would you do the boss fights? But they figure out ways around it, and it was a really cool game. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the sequels have in store for it. All right, when we get to around number 20 here, it is October month, and we are playing some horror games. And I actually have a lot of this recorded because I was going to do a review on it. Never got around to doing it, and that is Silent Hill Shattered Memories on the Wii. First Silent Hill game I've ever played and completed. Yes, you heard that right, folks. A guy who likes survival horror games is the first one that I've ever completed. I tried playing the first one back in the day, and I just did not like how I could only see 1 foot in front of me. So it just was not an enjoyable experience playing through. I was having trouble remembering where things were. But Silent Hill Shattered Memories, really interesting entry into the series if you really kind of look at how the series plays. Because this one, there really is no fighting, there's no combat in it. Basically, you're being transported between the real world and I guess Silent Hill world in the game. And when you're in the real world, you're uncovering clues and investigating like the next step you're supposed to go. Because again, you're trying to find your daughter in this one. And you're discovering more along the way, but your main is trying to find your daughter. And you'll get warped to the Silent Hill, like blue version of the world. And there really is no fighting in that. You got bad guys chasing you, but you're really just trying to find your way out of that area by hiding and running. You're not shooting or fighting or anything, it's just running. So it's almost like a big, just walking simulator. But the story was really cool. The ending, again, had a nice ending to it because I didn't see it coming. And it was an awesome little game, especially playing through on the Wii, like having the control of actually really looking around and everything. I liked it. So, first Silent Hill game, done. And continuing with survival horror, we have The Evil Within. This is a game that I tried playing when it first came out, and I didn't like the concept of after you killed an enemy, they were saying you would have to burn it because it would come back. You might have to fight it again. And the concept of that sounded so irritating to me that I just did not have any interest in the game. I tried playing it when it first came out, didn't really like it. And you know what? I'm gonna give it a go again. And that thing that I was worried about was never even an issue in the game. Not once did an enemy ever come back on me because I didn't burn it. So it's something that held me back from wanting to play it back in the day was never a problem. So I'm glad I finally got to experience this one. Do I put it up there with the Resident Evil entries? No. I know some people really like The Evil Within. For me, I'll stick with Resident Evil, but it was still a really cool game, and I'm glad I finally got to play it because it did have some visually pretty disturbing stuff in it. The story is really cool in it, so I'd like to play the second one just to see kind of how that story progresses because I really like the concept they got going on in it, but just glad I finally knocked it off the list and gave it a chance. All right, so next up on the list is Super Mario Wonder, 22nd game I completed this year. This was a game that it's kind of interesting how I think it was coming out near the end of October, if I'm correct. Well, this one my son really wanted because he loves Mario. I mean, I love Mario too. We all love Mario in this house, but he is the Mario freak right now. He loves everything Mario. And it was something to where he was really looking forward to it, but it was going to be his birthday present. This is the end of October, and his birthday is in December. So it's like, how do we kind of work this out? I wanted to play it too. So I'm like, man, I want to play this game and I don't want to wait till December. But so what we ended up doing, we did on his birthday. We bought it early, we surprised it for him, like, hey, this is gonna be your birthday gift. We're just giving it to you now. He's like, that is perfectly fine. So he was so excited about it. And that weekend that we gave it to him, he literally sit and beat it in 1 day and 100% the game by the next day, by Sunday. So he completely did everything in it in the weekend. And then I finally had a chance to start diving into it myself. So a lot of people put it up there as one of their, if not the best 2D Mario game now. It's definitely in their top 2 or 3. For me, it probably is sitting at number 2 now. I think Super Mario World still my number 1. nostalgia base, my first Mario game I ever owned. And I'd probably put it as number two. The controls, top notch. The levels, they had some really cool level concepts in it. I like how you could get the Wonder Seed and it changed the level up some and even add another mechanic to it. So I really liked it. Mario Wonder, that Nintendo and Mario, they just know what they're doing. It's awesome. And next up for our final two, we have Starfield, which was the last game I had completed for the year until we went ahead and played Bluey the video game, which is what I got for one of my daughters for Christmas. I'll talk about Bluey first because I didn't intend on playing this game, but it did have co-op in it. We don't watch Bluey in my house. No one's ever heard of Bluey. But when this game was coming out, I heard everyone saying, "Oh, it's a great game for kids to play. Young kids will love it." So I got it for my youngest daughter, who is 6, and we came in here and we did a co-op playthrough it just a couple days ago. And I don't have much to say about it, but from what her review of it was, I mean, even for her at 6 years old, it was way too easy for her. It's basically a walk around, grab this item, and it's got an arrow pointing to the item you need to eventually grab, with a couple mini games here and there, but really, really simplistic game. I guess if you're a big Bluey fan, it might be right up your alley, but again, we've never watched it before, so we know nothing about Bluey. But I thought it would be a good game for her to play. Just way too easy. For kids these days, like she's in there, Minecraft and Roblox, they're building their own stuff. She's just a little bit too advanced, I guess, for Bluey right now. So I guess we'll finish here by talking about Starfield, one of the most hype anticipated games of the past few years. Bethesda had pushed this thing big time. We were all looking forward to it with all these big things they were talking about it. And boy, oh boy, did it disappoint me. Even beyond Diablo 4 did this game disappoint me. So it's obviously without a doubt, before I talk about my game of the year, Starfield was my biggest disappointment of the year, hands down. Now, why is that? Well, it pretty much plays like any other Bethesda game and like Fallout or anything like that, except yes, it's taking place in space. The things that really pulled it down for me, the most annoying thing with the game is just the quest layout and how it all works. You could literally be spending 20 minutes fast traveling back and forth, talk to somebody, fast travel, I mean, it was just so annoying. All right, here's a better way to describe it. This is what would happen. Go talk to the quest giver. Talk, 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 get your selections. Okay. Run back to your ship. Go through a little loading screen getting in your ship. Get in the seat of your ship. Go through a loading screen. Open up a menu for a map. Fast travel to a planet or wherever. Loading screen. You're in the sector for the planet. Open up your map again. Go land on the planet. You've landed on the planet. You want to get out your ship or the cockpit. You get out your ship. Loading screen. Go run and talk to this person. You talk to him whilst running into no life or anything on the planet. You're just running to the point. Nothing to fight. Nothing. There's nothing. Go. Get the item or talk to person. Dialogue. Fast travel back to ship. Loading screen. Menu. Fast travel. Loading screen. Menu. That's all the game was. It was just like, who designed this? Who designed this system? This makes no sense. Especially with the No Man's Sky, you could just get in your ship, take off out the planet seamlessly, fly somewhere else and land. You don't go through all that headache. And it's just, you can't skip anything. When you get in the ship, you have to go through the loading screen of it rising up to take off or it landing down. Like little things like that just started to bug me so much. That made the game just feel so slow at times. But then there are times you do get in an area that actually had some games and stuff in it, or enemies and stuff in it for you to fight. But the whole point about Starfield was I wanted to have this big sense of discovery in the game, and I was not getting that at all. I was not getting any sense of discovery in the game because of all the fast traveling and the menu screens and the loading screens that kept slowing it up. And even if you did discover something like, ooh, there's another weapon over there, I would find the same weapon over and over and over again, the same things over and over and over again. Like, where's my unique weapons, my unique armors and stuff? I ran into a couple, but nowhere near enough. Fallout 76 gives me way more stuff than this game would. And this is supposed to be the largest Bethesda game. But I feel like I'm finding nothing, and there was no sense of discovery. It took me a long time to complete this game because I got it when it first came out. Like an idiot, I bought the $100 edition because I thought it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. Man, I wish I could have refunded that thing within the first few hours because I would have. But unfortunately, I couldn't because I had bought digital currency from GameStop because I had credit. And then I used that to get the game. So blah, blah, blah. Anyways, big disappointment. It took me forever to beat it because I put it down. I was not even gonna complete it until we got closer to the end of this month. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna finish it just so I can finish it and have it out the way and say that I did so I can give you my honest opinion on it. Starfield, the biggest disappointment of the year, hands down. Man, I'm so glad I played Mass Effect and stuff again to get my sci-fi fix because Starfield did not give it to me. All right, so what is my game of the year? Hands down, Starfield was the disappointment of the year. But our game of the year choices here, what do we got? We have Dead Space Remake, Atomic Heart, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Diablo 4, Tears of the Kingdom, Illusion Island, Mario Wonder, Starfield, and Bluey. So we got 9 games to choose from that came out this year. Bluey came out this year, so there you go. But what would be the game of the year? I can already tell you right off the bat, the 2 that are jumping right to the top, Dead Space Remake and Tears of the Kingdom. It's going to be so hard for me to pick between those 2. Because Dead Space Remake was just a remake done to perfection for me. It was just incredible. Atmosphere and everything in that game, it was top notch. But it was the same in Zelda. The atmosphere in that game was great. The combat was great. The story was great. That ending battle sequence. Oh, it's tough. You know what? I think the key thing, though, is that Dead Space was a remake. You could probably say the same thing about Tears of the Kingdom, though, too. Kind of a remake or enhancement of Breath of the Wild. I guess we give it to Bluey then. There you go. Bluey the video game. No, I'm gonna give it to Tears of the Kingdom. It is close. It is so close. Dead Space Remake is right there. It'll probably be followed by RE4, but Zelda, that ending sequence, the story in the game, visually, it's just beautiful. The sense of discovery in that game is incredible. Not just on different planes, vertically, sense of discovery. It's awesome. Tears of the Kingdom, hands down, it's got to be number 1. Followed very closely by Dead Space Remake and then Resident Evil 4 Remake. And man, I'm losing my voice during this whole thing, so I guess we'll cut it there. I'll try to get my voice back. I'll see you guys next year in 2024.